What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today I got a customer brought me his T5. We're gonna get it torn down, take you guys along with me and see what we got. What do you think, Shelby? You think it's any good? So I looked up the tag number, guys. It is a Fox Mustang T5, world class. So as long as everything's good on the inside, it's a V8 T5, so it can be rebuilt. Gonna have to get this thing cleaned up better once we got it all torn down. Make sure there's no cracks in the case anywhere. Make sure all the threads are good, because there's nothing worse than going to torque up all your bolts after you rebuilt the transmission and one of the threads is gone. So you got to take everything apart again, take everything out the case, drill tap, helicoil, put everything back together, seal it back up, and torque them back down. So it's always good to check the threads on these cases. I want to make a note here, guys. Now I know this has been apart before, because if you look at this snap ring, you see how that taper is angled in this direction. It should be angled in this direction. So this snap ring is on backwards. Now why that is because when you go to use your snap ring pliers, when the taper is in the correct direction, you'll have a point for the pliers to grab. Now, if I were to do this one-handed right now, there's a good chance that the pliers will just slip right out because there is nothing for the pliers to grab. You know, the more pressure you put, the more it's just gonna want to fling right out. So when you put these snap rings on, make sure that the taper is kind of like a triangle coming this way. So sometimes these need to be cut off because it's so bad that you can't get it off. You just can't get a grip on it. This one I normally do with the main shaft standing up. Let's see if we can do it this way. I'm going to have to spin this around. Same idea here. Unfortunately, the snap ring is on backwards. Got lucky on that one. All these gears, I did a close inspection on them. They seem to be reusable. The pattern looks great. The only issue I saw was second gear. This is very common. So these engagement teeth, they have some roundness to the teeth. If you guys are unfamiliar with what I'm talking about here, it's these teeth here. So it seems as though the synchro is on its way out, or this person was abusing the transmission a little bit. I mean, second gear, guys, that's like the best gear to bang when you're going down the road in your Fox body. So this one is usually the most beat up. Next to that is third. So it's not uncommon to see this. But usually when I see these, they're like worn down past this point where this whole front edge is just wiped out. Because when you lose the synchro, nothing is slowing down the gear but the 1-2 slider right there. So it's just metal on metal. And these teeth wear out, they break, you have hard shifting, and in extreme cases the gears pop out. So this gear can be refinished. I'm going to take a Dremel and clean up the top edges of these engagement teeth and make sure there's no burrs on them. Same with the slider. I always replace the slider when I do a rebuild. It's included. This one actually is can be reused, so it's up to him if he wants to replace it or not. These teeth look, they don't look bad. Just normal wear on it. So again, I could take a Dremel to this and clean up these teeth, but you know, most of the time, guys, it's great to replace this. So yeah, we have a great core here. So I'm going to call him, see what he wants to do. If he wants to just do a nice rebuild kit with my upgrades in it, it's up to him. If he wants to go all out and buy a new gear set and get the Pro Street, the 295, it's all up to him. So whatever he wants to do. It seems as somebody's been in here. They definitely didn't replace all the parts. They probably did a repair because I can tell with those snap rings that they were on backwards. So this shaft has been apart. These bearings don't look like they were replaced just by looking at them and the age, and they're also the original Timken bearings. So you can start to see on the input there's some wear on the rollers, very slightly. So always good to replace the bearings. Yeah, a lot of times, guys, people bring me their transmission, they'll say it was rebuilt, and I'll open it up and it was definitely not rebuilt. You know, most of these guys, they take your transmission apart, they'll just replace what it needs. But the way I see it is, if you're already paying someone to disassemble everything, you might as well throw new parts in it, because say you take a chance and you put everything back together, go down the road, and that part that you probably should have replaced, even though it looked okay, you know, kind of went out on you. So then you got to do everything twice, and you know, it's always better to replace it when you can. So we got everything apart, we've inspected everything, everything looks good. So just get a new rebuild kit, we'll get brand new synchronizers, we'll get new bearings, all the small parts, these keys, these springs. Also, we're going to upgrade the counter gear retainer plate. It's a much stronger piece. So this is the stock counter plate. If you remember, go back in the video, I had the whole case in the press, or pressing off that bearing. But before that, this plate holds in that bearing. So your whole cluster gear preload holds all that in. And if this starts to stretch, then you lose the preload on the bearings, which happens. Then you start getting play in your counter gear, and then it's a ticking time bomb, and you're going to be looking at brand new gears, whole rebuild kit. So all my rebuilds, guys, even in my standard rebuilds and definitely in my performance builds, I put in this counter gear retainer plate. It's an upgraded piece. It is very thick, way thicker than the factory stamped steel piece. So it's just a beefy unit and definitely required for a high performance T5 build. It comes with new hardware and as well as shims to shim it and get the preload correct on the bearing. There's nothing worse than having to shim a bearing and not having the right shims. So this comes with it all. I offer these parts on my website as well. Also, we're going to throw in a nice steel bearing retainer for the front. The factory ones are aluminum. Aluminum is a softer metal than steel. The throwout bearing is steel, so when you got a steel bearing on an aluminum shaft, that bearing is eventually going to eat up that shaft. You're going to have clutch release issues, binding. So to avoid all that, upgrade to this cast steel unit. It will outlast that aluminum retainer and you won't have to think twice. I include this in every rebuild that I do. It's a no-brainer. So that's going to wrap this one up, guys. I know I didn't really explain anything while I was taking this T5 apart. So if you're interested in like a really detailed video on how to rebuild your T5, I'll throw those videos in the description below. Maybe I'll make a video on the reassembly process. So I took you guys this far. So if you enjoyed the content, guys, please like and subscribe. I appreciate you guys watching, and we'll see you on the next one.